In a world full of distractions, there is one big question on every dog owner's lips.
How do I become more than just the person holding the other end of the leash?
We all get dogs with a dream in mind, a vision of the future. And if right now your everyday reality isn't quite that picture you had in mind, you are in the right place.
It really doesn't have to be this way.
You absolutely can and will be more to your dog than just the person who gets in between them and the world.
The key is you need to be more sexy.
More sexy than the neighbourhood cat.
More sexy than the jogger in the park.
More sexy than that half-eaten hamburger they just found on the floor.
And yes, even more sexy than the dog across the road.
I'm Tom.
And I'm Lauren.
Together we're Absolute Dogs.
And you're listening to the Sexier Than a Squirrel podcast.
Hello and welcome to this episode of the Sexier Than a Squirrel podcast, the podcast that teaches you how to be the best owner your dog could ever wish for, unlock real life results, and achieve that relationship that you know is possible with your dog.
Now, we have been asked this question time and time again. We know it's a struggle. It's particularly been a struggle throughout this lockdown period that some people might have been through in different countries, I think all over the world, really, at some point. Actually, what do we do with a shy dog, a shy puppy, a puppy who maybe hasn't seen all the things that an owner might have hoped they would have seen, or actually a dog who's just generally worried?
Yeah, absolutely. And so I guess the first thing that we should tackle is with the recent lockdowns and the limitations on how much exposure we can give to young dogs potentially. Is that the end of the world? Is that such a bad thing, or is it potentially not? And you can probably tell by the way that I've started answering that maybe it's not as bad as we think it is. There's a lot of talk at the moment about how how much of an impact that is going to have, and certainly it is going to have an impact. But what we're really passionate about, and this is kind of more of a game changer perspective than a traditional perspective, is that actually the absence of a bad experience is way more important than good experiences. And
we talk to owners about this all the time, owners where they're desperately worried that they haven't been able to show their puppy that's been bought through the pandemic or through the lockdown period. They haven't been able to show them all the things they hope to show them. They haven't been able to take them to all the places they hope to take them. And actually, now they're really worried, so they're trying to throw them in all different situations. Our biggest thing right now is stop. Take a step back. You know what? Rome wasn't built in a day. Let's have a sort of take stock, rethink about it. And actually, there's a lot we can do that doesn't need them to be thrown in at the deep end.
Exactly. And really, the key to having a puppy who is cool, calm, and collected with the world, thinks that the world is great, is actually quality over quantity. It's about having controlled good experiences, but not exposing them to the point where they're going to have a bad one, right? If you expose your dog to 10 good experiences, specific experiences, that's far more useful than, say, 20 experiences where maybe 18 were good and 2 were bad. Those bad ones, they hold some weight.
Well, I'm thinking we could maybe take little Magma, because Magma is a beautiful youngster. She's Tom's party poodle. She is the most stunning girl. And actually, we've seen her throughout her whole sort of, she's been a puppy during this period.
Yeah, absolutely.
She has definitely experienced some great things.
She's actually not known life outside of lockdowns.
So should we run through her? Why don't we use her as a bit of a case study on this? Because I think it's a great way of looking through exactly how you've done it and how we see it, and even how we filmed within this and kind of how it looks for her. Yeah,
absolutely. And so Magma definitely has not experienced normal life, a kind of pre-lockdown life, and yet the interesting thing is that that's not really affected her, because what she's been doing is she's absolutely, seen people at a distance, and she's met people in those brief periods of where we could mix in the UK. But the key is that it's not about, first things first, when it comes to people, it's not about interacting with people that creates a good emotional response. It's actually just being in the presence of people, seeing people, positive outcomes happening in the form of me delivering some of her daily food allowance and her thinking that people are a non-event.
And people are around, she's having a great experience, but she's not having to interact directly with them. And I think this is a massive game changer for so many people. I think the thought of actually, I see people, I don't need to do anything, they're a non-event, and actually I just get to hang out with my owner. Now, how cool would that be for your off-leash freedom, for example? Or how cool would that be for having the most amazing recall, for example? Or how cool would that be in terms of distractions? Like, you know what? This is like absolute gold dust. Have a dog that really thinks good things and yet doesn't need to go off and visit every one of them.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, then we think about dogs as the next part of this little case study that we're talking about. And the interesting thing is, and I mean this in the nice way. I mean this in the kindest way, from a very, you know, loving place. It is very arrogant of us as humans to think that we can train a dog how to interact with its own kind, how to communicate with its own species. The reality is that actually dogs are born knowing how to interact with their own species, just as we know how to interact when we go to a party.
Well,
the difference
some of us
this is
do.
the thing. The difference is that some of us have the skills to be able to implement what we know, and others among us do not. And so, you know, you can take two people going to the same party, and you ask them before they go, how should you interact? And they'll say, oh, you know, I shake people's hands, or maybe not anymore.
Or I run up and give them a hug and a kiss, but again, maybe not anymore.
I you know, have a conversation starter. I engage them in conversation, and then I move on to the next person.
I pour them a drink, or
yeah, I offer them a drink, and you'd know all these things that you could and should do, and yet then if we follow those two people at the party, probably there'll be one that will be stood in a corner, very, very petrified and won't speak to anyone, and there'll probably be another one dancing on the table. And so the point is that our skills allow us to implement our communication with our own species. And so Magma was born knowing how to interact with her own species. And the reality is that she actually didn't interact. She didn't really meet another dog until, I mean, it was a few months ago now. So
yeah, a long time.
Like, she must have been like 7 months old.
If we consider that so many people think that when a dog meets another dog, they have to have met lots of other dogs. Actually, if we just consider that dogs are novelty, and if we just consider that what she needs to be cool with is novelty.
Yeah, and what she needs is that like combination of being optimistic and confident, being cool, calm and collected, and being able to disengage, so not getting kind of overly engaged and unable to pull herself away.
If we had that as a recipe for success, ability to disengage, ability absolutely to be cool, calm, collected, confidence and optimism in the bucket loads, you know what? You're going to be in quite a good space.
Yeah, and in fact, what she did a few months ago is we encountered a dog on a walk. She met a dog. She was off lead, and the other dog was off lead, and it kind of took us a bit by surprise, as it always does when other dogs kind of dash up to yours. But the difference is that she was fully prepared, not because of repeated exposure to other dogs, but because she'd been taught calmness, confidence and optimism and disengagement through games, the games that we play at home, the games that many of you listening will be thinking, oh yeah, I can think of, you know, a few games that help those things. You play those in your living room, you play them in your garden, you play them on your walks, on lead. And what you do is you create a dog that can then implement what they know, implement how they know to interact with other dogs. And so whether we've covered people and we've covered other dogs, and yet what I hope you're realizing, and what we hope you get from this, is that it's not about exposure and socializing. It's about skills, concepts, the strengths that we build at home, and then they have the confidence and the ability to implement in the situation.
Now, if we consider, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago, I remember having those conversations where you need to get out and you need to see 100 people. You need to see all the people with the masks. Well, no, that would be now.
Yeah.
You need to see all the people with the hats,
beards,
and the coats and the
backpacks,
the
wizard's hat.
You know what? You need to go and see those things. How do we counteract that? Or how do we, what do we say to that when people say, no, it's because you haven't shown him a man in a yellow jacket. It's because you haven't taken him in a tunnel like this before. How do we counteract that? Or what do we say? What's our comeback?
What you're working on there, the reason why that can sometimes work, and it can sometimes go wrong. Many of you would have experienced it going wrong, and we dedicated an entire episode of the podcast to socialization and this concept of socialization. And if you haven't listened to that one, check it out because it's a really good one. But what we need to do is prepare our dogs for novelty, because we can't know what is around the corner. And actually, the best kind of novelty is probably the novelty that we have some control over. And so if we start adding other human beings to the picture, or if we start adding other people's dogs to the picture, you're really increasing the chances of things going wrong, because you can't train your dog and somebody else's dog at the same time, and you can't rely on them training their dog. And equally, you can't rely on people doing as they're told. You know, we've all experienced those situations where we've asked somebody to give us space, and they've been like, "No, I'm good with dogs. Dogs love me." And next
I
thing,
love dogs. Dogs love me.
Launching
and they're
themselves,
squishing themselves in. Now, the thing is, Tom's just sort of dropped in the idea that we play sort of games that might help with novelty, or games that might help with optimism and confidence. All of these games, so many games in the training academy, so many games in Sexier Than a Squirrel, so many games out there.
And if you're not sure where to start, we've actually put together a getting started booklet for you that you can download at absolutedogs.me/start. That's absolutedogs.me/START for start. And you'll be able to download that one there.
Now, I'm thinking of games like Cardboard Chaos, Knock 'em Over, definitely some novelty party, definitely some noise box, it's definitely some DMT. That's going to be really, really good. Now, we've got so many games for this. I'm just going to take one. I'm going to take Cardboard Chaos. And what I'm going to say is, let's, you know what, it's such an easy thing to do. Go shopping, get cardboard. Cardboard seems to come through the door on a daily basis. And for me, recycling is almost creating a bit of Cardboard Chaos, putting all those cardboard boxes together, sometimes making them quite big, quite small, little corners.
Mix up the picture.
They can change what they see from different views. Sometimes a box that's so big your dog can't see you round the other side, so it helps to encourage independence. You know what? There's so many things you can do that. And all you're going to do is scatter some of your dog's daily intake around that cardboard. Your dog's going to have an amazing time finding their food, and at the same time growing optimism and building optimism. And really, for me, when I watch our dogs do this, it's kind of like an easy ride. Like it's a really easy ride. It's like an easy training session. You don't need to do a lot. It's more like let them learn.
Let them explore the world, but it's in a very controlled way. And if you can get your dog to be comfortable with, not even be comfortable, think that novelty is great. You know, no matter what the person's doing in the distance, no matter what the dog is doing running up to them, no matter what noise, the quirky noise
it's just like
they hear.
You've got this.
It doesn't matter.
Not got this.
Knocked a squirrel over. It doesn't matter.
Not on the car or anything. It was just
there was a toy squirrel on the table for all of you listening. You know what? They're prepared. And I know many of you would have heard this story before. I went to a country show in Devon, where Devon, we have cows, we have sheep.
Every now and again we might have a llama.
Yeah, we have dogs, the odd alpaca, right? And I was walking around and I had Lava with me, and I think Thistle, they were both quite young dogs at the time, really, and heard dogs barking around the corner. And I'm thinking, maybe there's a loose dog. It's fine. We're prepared for that. Maybe there's a funky-looking cow. It's fine. We're prepared for that. I walked around the corner and there was a massive camel.
Not just a little one, a big one.
I'll be honest, I hadn't done the checkbox on socialise with camels on my socialisation checklist that I'd ripped up many years ago anyway. But the point is... And
you'll have seen one, those socialisation checklists that really shouldn't exist anymore, and they're sat in the vets and they give you them out at puppy parties, and it's just not something that we feel is needed. There's a game for that, or many games. So Tom, what happened next?
What happened next is that all these dogs were kicking off and barking, probably heavily socialized. They were at a country fair, for goodness sake. They were probably very socialized. And Lava and Thistle were like, a cow with two humps. Novel.
Nice.
We love it. And we just carried on, and they saw it as a non-event. They didn't want to interact with the camel. They were not scared of the camel. They were just like, life's a novelty party, right? And we're going through it together. And this is what we need to create. And you create that at home. So, going back to shy, nervous puppies, yeah, absolutely. Because of, maybe not being able to get out and about, and they've not been exposed to as much novelty because because of simply not really leaving the house all that much, we are going to have puppies that are a little bit more maybe worried or cautious or nervous about the world. But what we can do is we can counteract all of that by teaching them novelty is great at home. And so whether it's the game that Lauren talked you through of Cardboard Chaos, whether it is, just getting the kids' toys out of the loft and bringing them down into the middle of the room and throwing some daily food allowance around so that your puppy can experience that. Whether it's finding, 10 different surfaces, from a baking tray to bubble wrap to a rolled up towel, and popping those in the living room and having your dog interact with them and walk over them. If we can teach them to think novelty's great, then we actually socialize them for everything they could ever encounter, including the stuff you never thought you would encounter, including the camels in life.
And the thing is, when we say including the camels in life, you're going to see them. You're going to get them. It might not be a camel.
Yeah,
I
can bet there's a listener who is like, your cow is my camel where I live. But you know what? Whatever is novel to you.
There's a game for that. I think the thing is that we are never going to give our dogs or get our dogs to tick everything off that socialization checklist. It's not the way we work. If we grow optimism, we grow disengagement, we grow flexibility, we grow novelty, we grow all of what we are talking to you about, you know what? I think we've got this.
Yeah.
And I've seen it time and time again. I mean, let me take you on Tokyo's first walk. So, I mean, to be honest, he's only he's a 20-month-old dog. So actually he's had a great deal of his life through this period.
Yeah.
And actually he went on his first walk, which I know people are going to be shocked at. He walks his first sort of proper his responsibility walk. Everything is his responsibility pretty much, other than vehicles and roads. Like I'm out and I let him kind of make his own decisions, and he walks past dogs, he walks past people, he walks past kites, he walks past surfers. He did considering weeing on their surfing board. I did say that was just not appropriate, and he didn't wee on your surfboard, don't worry. What I'm saying is that actually as we're moving through, I can see that he's got this now. That is a dog who has grown through playing games. That is a dog who's grown through all of what we do here, has certainly never ticked off that tick list.
No.
And I've certainly never thrown him in at the deep end. No. And I remember, maybe 10, 15 years ago, people saying things like, give someone some food and get them to feed the dog. You'd see this dog edging forward, pushing back, edging forward, pushing back, fearful to take the food and at the same time didn't want to lose the food. And, that freaks me out now when I see it. It freaks me out. I'm
just thinking about when I first got Illy, and I got her at, I think she was between 5 and 7 months old, and I remember getting her, I was a second or third home, and I remember thinking, oh my goodness, I'm not going to be able to reverse the damage that has been done because she's not been socialized. And
that critical window is gone.
And the reality is that actually that might have been a bit of a savior, right? That might have been an opportunity for me to say, you know what, now I can be very specific about and very controlled about quality, not quantity, and teaching her that novelty's good. And actually she's the most bomb-proof dog
really?
Now, like
Bomb-proof
insanely
poodle.
Dream bomb-proof.
And I'm thinking about another point, I suppose. Being out and about doesn't necessarily help to cure any shyness. No. And I think that's like a common myth. Get them out, show them it. And yet, I'll be honest again with Tokyo, I haven't put him out there and haven't shown him everything because actually it's such a common myth. Put them out there, make them see it, get them underneath it, get them around it.
The environment we have little control over often, and really we want you to think about the environment as the test. And build it lots, test it little is what we need to be doing. We need to be, shaping our dog's brain, and then so that they are ready for that environment. The environment's not the training. Actually, the training happens. Is the game playing at home.
Now, you're basically your dog's successful coordinator, creator of exactly what this pathway is. And for every dog, it's going to look different. And for every dog, it's going to change. And there are going to be periods where you need to adapt it, you need to adjust it. I'm just thinking of 2 7-month-old pups I'm working with at the moment. Both of them in the last couple of weeks, but with different owners, and are both border collies, and both of them have had like what I would call a blip. And the first answer to both owners is recoil. Do not overface them. Do not keep putting them in there. Effectively, they've gone through a shy period. And when I say a blip, just spooky barking at things. And what I've said is, bring them back. Don't keep exposing them. And yet one owner keeps pushing to put them back in the situation. I need to make him see a black dog. I must get him back to that black dog situation. He didn't like the Labrador last time. I think in a minute he's not going to like any Labrador or any dog, because she keeps pushing him into that space.
And if he wasn't skilled enough to have that conversation well at the time, and we've not taught him any skills in the meantime,
it's not going to get any better.
It's not going to get any better. He's still going to go to that party and either, tremble in the corner or be dancing on the table.
In fact, it's probably, let's be honest, Tom, it's probably going to get worse because he's going to be thrown into that situation multiple times without the skills to be able to handle it, which actually only serves to rehearse him feeling very shy and worried.
Yeah. So in summary, guys, there's a game for that. Socialization is not the game. And therefore, what we need to do is actually feel quite empowered and quite excited about the fact that, lockdown or no lockdown, this is not setting us back.
Opportunity to grow you, to grow your dog, to grow your learning. Now, one thing I really want all of you to do is to share this. Yeah. There are so many people with new dogs through this period. There are so many people with new pets through this period. Please, can you share this podcast? I want you to share it with anybody who might have had a dog in the last year and a half, because actually this will have had some layer of effect on them, and also owners who have dogs who actually just haven't been able to go out and are feeling a little bit guilty about it. So actually it's something that I think that we could share.
And I'd go a step further there, and I'd say that actually,
you always have to go one more, don't you? So
I'd actually say that there's on this topic especially of pandemic puppies and whatever else, there's a lot of scaremongering going on, and there's not much empowering thought
empowering
future or practical what to do about it. And so, guys, let's counteract the scaremongering. Let's share this far and wide, and let's tell people, let's scream to people, there's a game for that, this is not the end. This is not their fate, right? So with that, guys, share it. Let's overpower the naysayers. And that was this episode of the Sexier Than a Squirrel podcast. We'll see you in the next episode. And remember, stay sexy. Hey, before you go, have you taken part in the worldwide Sexier Than a Squirrel challenge?
It's a 25-day online video program. Huge energy, amazing community, and over 6,000 people are already taking part.
The only question is, you know where you are today. Where do you want to be 25 days from now? Head to absolutedogs.me/sexy.